Howdy, everybody in YouTube land. What we have in front of us today is a stack of trash. And I mean that literally because this stuff's been sitting in my parts bin for, I don't know, since 2010 or so, give or take, because that's about when I was buying all these up to work on. And I kept running into weird situations like cracked LCDs, and I can't use that because of the cracked LCDs. I have a cable that goes to I have no idea what. I have a PowerBook 145 lid, well, lower display bezel, which I worked on a 145 recently, and I think that's just leftover parts. Keyboard, some other PowerBook, something another. I don't know what that one actually is. It's missing the pieces that go on the bottom of it, which I'm pretty sure I have it around here somewhere. This one is also, nope, this is the 160. And the 160 has a blemish on the screen. It's got screen cancer. So, a little bit of a yellow keyboard, but not a big deal. No trackball, no ring, which I think I still have something somewhere. So I'm thinking, or at least I'm hoping, I can actually make out of all of this stuff, because I think this is the 160 base. I don't remember though, but I'm pretty sure this is the 160 base. Yeah, it is. So I do have the 160 base that I can actually use to try to put this thing back together. Sorry, my brain's thinking. And then this one has the bottom, or all the boards and stuff in it, but the problem with this one is that doesn't fit this. So this is not the same, and it comes with free spiders. This one's from 1993. That one's from 92. So that one's even older than this one is. What one's this one? Oh, we got another 145. Now this one had a bad CPU card and motherboard assembly, so I got rid of it. I only have the top cover. Oh god, it's missing the spacebar. But it's less yellowed. But I think the spacebar can be found somewhere else. I don't know, we'll see. Okay, that screen's in good condition. Now, what I need to find out is if that display will fit the 160 assembly. I gotta look through my stash and see if I still have the boards that came out of here, because if I don't, then that's not gonna work, right? So, yeah, it's gonna be an interesting thing to see if I can piece all of this together. I think the first step, though, is to see if this base unit will actually run. We got to take it apart anyways to fix the standoffs, because, well, that's just what all these do, but let's see. Hard drive should spin. It does. Does it run? Doesn't seem like it. I don't hear it clickety clackety clucko twinkulating. So, alright, well, at least we know the machine powers up. I am going to go ahead and take this thing all the way apart, though, and go through the standoffs, because every single one of these has to have the standoffs glued back down and reseated and all that stuff because of, yeah. But yeah, this hard drive's dead. Not surprised. Every single one of these are cracked and problematic, so they have to be fixed. That one's all busted up. We got some cracked ones there. Yeah, they're bad. Just like every single one of these. And what happens is the plastic doesn't get brittle. The plastic is actually pretty good. The issue is the plastic shrinks, and the brass is not going to shrink with it, right? So as it shrinks, there's too much pressure and tension on the plastic over time, and it just cracks apart. So the way to fix this is you have to glue this all back together with like MEK or acetone or whatever, squeeze it back together, and then reheat these nutserts and just melt them back into the plastic, so that way the plastic can shrink around it some more. It'll break again eventually, but it'll last a whole lot longer if you do it that way. All right, all the standoffs are done. Now they look ugly and bubbly because I first went with this to try to soften up the plastic, and I grabbed my hemostats to push and squeeze the plastic together while heating the standoff. So everything is solid. It's not going anywhere. So that's in there. Everything's solid. So I can literally lift the whole thing up by the standoff now. So I'm going to let that cure because it does take a few hours for that to cure. And while that's curing, I want to move over to the LCD because I need to know if the PowerBook, and to take a step back here, the reason why I'm even doing this is there was a discussion that came up recently in a Discord server with Ron saying that all of these PowerBook LCDs are exactly the same. That could be true. Now, I don't personally know because there's a reason why I couldn't fix the 160 and I threw it in the bin with the cracked screen, and even with the extra 145s. And I know this connector is wider, so you can't plug the 145 interposer into the 160 or 165. So what I'm going to do is take the LCD out of the 145, and I want to see if it actually fits in the 165 bezel or 160 bezel. So I'm pretty sure it does, but the 165 is a big wild card. Now I don't have that 165 anymore. It went away. I don't know what happened to it. I don't know if I had to use the parts to fix the 165C. I don't recall. So we're just going to go ahead and take the 145 LCD out and then put it into this 160. And I can get the 160 going. At least I'll have that good to go. And then the rest of it will definitely be parts. Well, I'll be damned. It's the exact same panel. It's identical. So the panel that is in the 145, this one's got a little bit of scratches, but I'm just going to have to deal with it because it's not like I can get that film anymore. It's the exact same. So this is the cracked one that came out of the 165, and this is the 145. Now I still have to take apart the 160, but there's no reason why it shouldn't be the same. Alrighty then. So, yeah. To no one's surprise, the standoffs are definitely screwed and have to be fixed for sure. That's all busted up there. And it's from shrinking, getting brittle. Well, not even really so much brittle, it's just from shrinking. And then the torsion just cracks it apart. So, I'm going to do the same technique that I did the other ones. I'll see if they hold up. If not, because every time I work on these machines, I do a little bit more experimentation. Like the 180Cs, I replace these with plastic 3D printed hinges. And I can do the same thing here too. So, but first I want to try the MEK and using soldering iron approach. And if that doesn't work, if it breaks again, then I'm just going to go 3D printing, just like I did before. Something like that. No idea if it's going to hold up, but hey, it's done. Now, this is the one from the 145. I'm going to grab the 160 one because this one's not in the best of shape, but I wanted to have it fixed anyways. So I'm going to grab the other one, and we're going to try that one out and get it apart. Alright, so I removed the panel out of the 160 because it's got the blemish in the corner there. So, but look, this is a P514, and this one's a P58. So they are different. Electrically, or physically they look the same, but electrically, are they? I don't know. I think that's the problem I ran into before. Before I get super crazy invested in on this, I decided to hook up the different model number panel to the 160 board, and I want to see if it works. So far, it's not. But then again, these have capacitor issues, so the caps have to warm up before they'll even begin to show a picture. But if this never shows a picture, then they are indeed not compatible, as I suspected. But we shall find out. Alright, well, this panel is actually working, but it has issues. I mean, it's got like... You see, like, the upper half of the screen is very flickery, and the lower half is missing pixels. There's definitely an issue going on there. I'm working with the board just to make sure it's not... Yeah, look at that. There it is. Definitely feels like we've got problems with this cable. Because I can get it there, but then... Let's see if I can't get it finagled in a little bit more. Well, I can restore the bottom half at least. Top half is still a problem. And it could be the panel itself with a broken trace from all the leaky caps. Oh yeah. That's definitely a problem. Yeah, it kind of works, but it's not quite there. I'll have to tinker with this a bit. Did some further digging, and this cable is damaged in some weird way because uh there's like some 8 down from here is open, which goes to the keyboard, and then there's like 2 more just below that. We have that, and then we have the 2 grounds, and then we have this one, and we have the one next to it that are also open, and I think there's another one open somewhere. So there's like at least 4 connections open going through this cable. So we have a problem. And what I mean is I measure from here to here with the multimeter, it's broken. And 2 of those I know go to this LCD connection. So that explains what we've got going on. That means we've got to dig in that cable and figure out what happened. It's either the connector or the cable. The good news is this cable is the same as like an Ultra ATA IDE cable. So I can actually cut a new cable down and crimp it back on here if I had to, which is probably what I'm going to have to do. This thing is a royal pain in the behind to take apart. So I was able to get this apart, and there's a metal retaining thing that sandwiches all together. So I got that off. Now I just got this thing unsoldered, and it doesn't look too bad under there, really. A 4-layer, but anyway, so getting this off, I'm going to go find an old Ultra ATA cable to cut down to replace this. Ultra ATA cable to the rescue. Fortunately, those things are pretty much everywhere, so I just cut one up I had in my stash for I don't know how many years. This is 80 conductor. This is a 72 conductor, so it's as simple as measuring it and just peeling it off. And then I'm using... I cut the new piece just slightly longer. That way I have a little bit more forgiveness. Getting all that apart was not fun, but I got it all there. Now I just have to line this thing up and crimp it back down in place. The correct way around, of course. Now, with any luck, that'll work. It's hard to get this exactly straight, but I made sure there was no shorts before I crimped this one on anyways, so... Well, we about to find out. We about to find out. Okay, time to see if it blows up. Well, I got a chime. Flicker, flicker, flicker. screen needs a bit of repair, but other than that, hey, I got the top half of the screen working. It's flickering because the screen needs caps. I mean, that's just how it is, but you know what? That is how we fix a ribbon cable THEtechknight style. Yay! These caps are almost too tall because all I have are miniature through hole at 3.3, so we'll have to see how that plays out. The last time I did a screen like this, I used ceramics here, which work, but they don't work right. The contrast drifts, so you can't use ceramics there. Anyway, so I got that in there, so hopefully that works and that resolves our flickering issue. At least I'm hoping so. Alright, fresh caps are installed. We're wired up and see if that flickering issue goes away. I hope it does. Alright. Okay, let's adjust the contrast. Uh-oh. That's a fail. What happened there? Recapping didn't work. That made it worse. Huh. Okay. You know what's funny? The 145B that I worked on, it's just barely visible. The 145B that I worked on a long time ago had the same problem. That's weird. I'm thinking we got a broken trace on this board. That's why it was flickering. It was intermittent. But once I took the caps off and cleaned the board, it just finally opened up. I'm going to have to go look at the broken screen to find that open connection because I need a reference without tearing this apart. So now I'm getting somewhere between 24 to 28 volts out of the converter. So the converter is working properly. It's just there's the contrast control circuit is open somewhere on this display. And if I lick my finger and I touch these pins, I can get it to darken. So something opened. I'm going to take the broken screen apart and I'm going to rip all this stuff off on the broken screen because it's broken. It doesn't matter. And that's how I'm going to use, that's what I'm going to use to try to determine what's going on here. I've been messing around with this thing for hours and I've been using that as a reference and I can't find the break. I'm able, if I use a resistor on the voltage reference, which is right here, pin 20 of this particular IC. So if I use a 1K resistor between ground and the contrast input pin, which is right there, I can get the contrast to adjust, but it's just nothing but lines. Just like the same lines you're seeing now. So there's something wrong with this panel. And I remember seeing those lines coming and going before I recapped it. So this panel is probably just no good. I think I have one more. After that, we're done. There's no chance of repair here beyond that point. Now, I have a new old stock display, and this is my mistake for not opening it until 2-3 years later. So I have a brand new Hitachi display, but the problem is this doesn't fit anything I've ever seen. I thought this was the 180 display like the Hoseidon one, but it's not. I don't know what this goes to, but the problem is now I'm gonna need a different cable because that cable, there's no way this is gonna fit because that's for the top or the sharp displays. But I know that's a 170 style display because if I go to try to put this in here, look at this. It literally lines right up. It goes in this machine. But I've never seen this display before, so I don't know what machine it goes to. Because I don't like giving up easily, I went through and double checked everything again. Didn't see anything. And just for grins and shiggles, I removed the capacitor, the 3.3 microfarad capacitor that goes on the reference voltage for the contrast drive. And, you know, just out of curiosity. And here's an interesting observation. It's working fine. Look at that. No more lines. Perfect contrast. So what I want to do is I want to solder that guy back on and see if I get the same fault. Because I wonder if maybe perhaps I had a solder blob under there that was trapped and I didn't know. I mean, anything's possible, right? Because it worked before I recapped it. So, yeah, let me put that back on there and see if that solves my problem. I hate problems that just spontaneously go away like that. It always scares me because they usually spontaneously come right back, you know? Alright, here we go again. I put the capacitor back in there. Let's see what happens. Am I going to have the same problem or am I not? No? It's good. Wow. That's weird. It had to have been a solder blob on there somewhere, so I like how the camera's focusing on the reflection and not the device I'm trying to film. Anyway, so I'm going to go ahead and just get this thing back together. Get all my fingerprints off of here first. So what I do, just in case anyone's curious, when I get this messy and dirty, I just use these cheap Amazon ultra fine microfiber claws, and I can just hit it like that and it'll take it right off. And it leaves no streaks behind. And sometimes you might have to use a little bit of alcohol, but that's okay. It'll clean all that up and you won't have a problem. So I'm going to go ahead and get this put back together, I guess, because that's weird. Alright, the LCD panel is back together for a third time. See if it works. God, I hope it works. Ooh, yes. That is much, much, much better. Much better. I know the light's kind of interfering with it, so let's cut that off. Yeah, that is a lot better. Much, much, much better. Alright, perfect. I got that fixed. It must have been a solder blob under the caps I soldered in there. I don't know. I'm just human. I can make mistakes. So I'm going to go ahead and start getting this thing back together. Now that it's been several hours, all the standoffs should be cured. Alright, so this thing is going together quite well. I don't know how these glued together standoffs are going to hold up in the long term, but everything is going together fairly decently now. I got the keyboard in. I went ahead and took care of all of the standoffs in here with the same method as I did the bottom cover. I've got the new ribbon cable installed. I went ahead and put a Schottky barrier diode in here, so I can install an external battery. That way it's a coin cell that can be removed. The inverter's put back in. I did change a 47 microfarad capacitor there. The old one's just kind of like right there. So that's done. So now we're just going to slowly start getting this thing put back together. This is the one that's in the best condition. The hinges are not in the best of condition, but the case is in the better of the two. So we're going to use the 145 case and we're going to use the 160 cover because this is a 160 machine. Now that the top half is rebuilt, it's time to put together the Blue SCSI, courtesy of Tom Barber. So this one came from VCF Midwest 2024 by Tom. Thanks to him. So we're going to go ahead and get this guy installed in here while I have this apart, because there's two things I want to do. First, I want to get the internal Blue SCSI done, and then, like we've done before, I want to modify this machine to run on termination power. So we'll be good to go there as well. Pretty beautiful little Blue SCSI is now installed. This drive is no good. It doesn't boot, so I'm not sure why. I remember running into this 14, 15 years ago. I don't remember exactly, but I do remember that. So Blue SCSI's installed, so we're just going to go ahead and get the lid back on it and start sandwiching this thing back together. And I think we can finally actually turn this thing on and boot it up. Whoa. This thing was sitting in my scrap bin as a bag of parts for 14 years now at least, and it's finally gonna start seeing the light of day again. Starting to look a lot like Christmas now. At this point, we got to get a mouse ball in here and then get that sucker on. Luckily, I had a parts machine with that kicking around on it. That ball is shot. I gotta look and see if I got other balls, but alright, so let's power this thing on and see what happens. Turn that up. There we go. That looks so much better. Wow, that's so much better. That looks amazing for passive display. It's actually working. Now, my next question is it going to boot from a floppy disk? I don't know, but that is amazing. It's back together. Mouse ball works. Wow, I love it. I love it. It's working. Man, this is kind of I'm sorry, but this is kind of a surreal experience because this machine is actually working after, all this time. But anyways, I got the Blue SCSI installed. Everything is going on it now. I just have a basic system installed. I don't have any tools installed on here. I have nothing installed yet. But yeah, look at this. Powerbook 165. So at some point, this is a 160. The base says 160. That must mean the CPU cards have gotten switched out at one point. It's got a 165 CPU card. I don't know what the difference is between the two. I really don't. But so this is a bona fide Frankenbook that was built from miscellaneous scrap parts that have been in my scrap bin for the last 14 some odd years. So the fact that it's working at all is kind of a miracle. So there we go. There we have a functional Powerbook built from scrap parts. Love it. All right, so here's a question for you all. You know how classic Mac OS, you can open up the hard drive and there everything is. But the problem is, it's like you open up a system folder, then you open up an extensions folder, and then the problem is, like you get next thing you know, you get 500 folders open. Is there a piece of software out there that allows you to open it like Windows 95 style, where you can keep everything in one window with a back arrow or up arrow or something like that, so I don't have 500 windows littered across the desktop? Is there an app that does that? I'm actually putting this machine to decent use. I've got a stack of floppies over here that I'm archiving. And I'm archiving them in disk copy 4.2 format because then they could be used in the floppy emulator and stuff like that. So that just makes it easier to use, so I can just move them over to an SD card. But anyways, so the story behind these discs is I had an entire box full of these discs, and they actually came from my high school. So in high school, we had two classes. We had Computer App 1 and Computer App 2, or Computer Applications. Now, by the time I got into high school, they were 95, 98 machines, and most of the school was still running 98, XP, 2000. It was just a hodgepodge. But so there was a bunch of these discs because that entire classroom, before the Windows 95 machines were put in there, they were running a lab full of Macintosh SEs. Now, I ended up with one of those SEs. It's long gone, but at one point I ended up with one of those SEs, and I ended up with all of these discs that were given to me. Now, every single one of these went bad, and I never archived them back then. These are the last remnants of the discs I have left from that school. So I'll put a picture in above where these discs actually were in a box that was given to me by my IT school teacher. But I still have these left over, so I'm going to go ahead and archive them because I don't know if they were ever archived. These discs are actually bootable discs, and the way these machines were used is they were dual 800K SEs, so you'd have one of these discs in the one drive, and then you would have your student data disk in the other drive. That's how that was done. So I figured I might as well just go ahead and save all these up. I've been sitting on these discs for 20 some odd years now. I've had these discs that long. And I remember these labels were already starting to do that back then, but they've gotten even worse now. But hey, I have them. I'm going to go ahead and archive them while I still have the ability to do so. It's quite possible these discs are actually registered to Hamilton High School. I don't know, though, because they're locked. So, anyways, we'll see. I have one disc here that won't read, and unfortunately, it's the startup disc for Microsoft Works, which is interesting. Anyway, so I just noticed something. There's a little bit of mold on the disc, and I was trying to clean it, but it's going to kind of be hard to get on camera. But look at this. The adhesive failed on the spindle. So this is just loose inside the cookie. So I don't know if I'm going to be able to fix that. I got to see if this disc was already archived, because if not, well, not much I'm going to be able to do with that, because here's the thing. If this is not centered exactly right, the tracks are going to be off, because it's going to do this. Wobble, 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 wobble. So this has to be exactly right, or it's not going to be able to read that disc. The alignment's going to be off. Yikes. I never was able to recover that floppy disk. I did some Googling online, and it was archived anyway, so I'm not worried about it. It's funny. It wouldn't read bad sectors no matter what, but then I completely reformatted it, and it was fine with no bad sectors. So I think when the hub gets loose, there's a little bit of play there. Well, you'll never get it exact, so it throws the tracks off. Anyways, it is what it is, but the disc is functioning. So, moving right along. That's it. This PowerBook 160 is working perfectly fine. It's been on for several hours yesterday and today. So there we go. That is a PowerBook completely built from a pile of scrap parts that's been sitting around for 14 years. And I'm going to go ahead and pack this guy up and get it on the shelf. I've got a whole bunch of different PowerBooks I want to start getting rid of, because I have more laptops than I know what to do with. I want to narrow down to the select few that I might play around with, and I want to sell the rest of them. So this will likely be for sale. We'll see. But this might be one of the ones I sell. It types well. You know, I was actually typing a Word document on it. Compared to like a PowerBook Duo, the keyboard on this thing is amazing. So, anyways, if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to hit the like and subscribe and all that fun stuff. Please feel free to leave a comment if you have one. Until next time, guys, thank you for watching.